Wow, it is an honor to be here. I want to thank Lutheran Men in Mission for allowing me to be here because I really feel like I'm the thing that doesn't belong, if you remember that old Sesame Street thing. I don't have any letters behind my name. I don't have a title in front of my name, no pastor. We have two chiefs of police here. And really, by all statistics, my interaction with the police should not be sharing a stage with them. It should be more like, you got anything that's going to poke or stab me? Or watch your head as you get in the car, sir. I mean, statistically, I should be divorced. I should be an absent father. I should maybe be an alcoholic, living in poverty on drugs, and possibly even dead, I barely graduated high school. I had to go to summer school in order to get my diploma. I had to watch all my friends graduate. Sat in the stand and watched them all go through the ceremony, and I then went to summer school and got my diploma. Class of 87 and a half, right here. But it's not the case. That wasn't, I turned around and now I'm married. I have 3 kids, 21 to 16, and you can pray for me later. But how did I beat them? And we're talking about endurance. How did I beat those statistics, and we're talking about endurance. And really the endurance, the definition, I looked it up, and it was the ability to withstand hardship and adversity. And I think sometimes people get that confused with being strong, because I was told recently that I got through what I went through because I'm strong. And that's not the case. I'm strong because of what I had gone through. My childhood, I grew up in a home with a lot of dysfunction. It started out normal, I think, like everybody else, but things went on, and one big turning point was when my dad lost his dream job. He worked in radio and television. When I was about 10, he lost that job. And, for a man, that's devastating when you lose your career. And he had shown some signs of mental illness before that. And, in 78, there wasn't a lot of talk of that kind of thing going on, so we didn't know what that was. But, my mom and dad both worked. They tried to go on, but we fell further and further into poverty. I would spend some winters in front of the stove getting dressed because we wouldn't have the fuel oil to heat the house and things like that, and Thanksgiving would come in a box from the church. And so my dad struggled a lot trying to provide for his family. And I'm sure that was very devastating to him. So my mom and him worked a lot. So my sister and I would come home to an open house all the time, or empty house. We were taking care of ourselves a lot. We weren't allowed to go anywhere. We weren't allowed to have friends over. Our house was a mess all the time, so nobody was allowed in the house. And my mom and dad fought a lot. So the home life was chaotic, to say the least. I had been struggling with my own issues for a very long time. I was bullied in school. I had bright orange hair. I looked like Opie. And I got bullied for the hair. I got bullied for my homemade clothes. And this started way back in first grade. I even had a teacher buy me my own ball so I had something to play with at recess because nobody would play with me. I hated school. I hated going there. And bullying just became worse and worse as time went on. But then, as I got older, my dad's anger was also turning towards me. So school was a terrible place to be, and home was becoming a terrible place to be. And you know how it is when you're young and you ask mom, and she says, go ask dad for something. We just knew not to ask dad. We wouldn't even go over there, so you just would tell yourself, I didn't want that free ice cream anyway because it's not going to be fun. But I also had to learn to sneak around school. I was pretty good at it, like a ninja. I'd get around and hide from those bullies who wanted to get on me and stuff. But I couldn't do that at home. My dad knew where I was. He was in my bedroom all the time. That's where I just spent all my time. Door closed, in my bedroom, listening to music or whatever, trying to avoid anything. But eventually, he just would come to find me. So the door would fly open, and he'd just be filled with some rant and rave about some horrible thing I guess I was doing. And he was just mad at the world. But I was, kind of being the brunt of his anger. I eventually was invited by a teacher to try out for the theater, and this opened up doors for me. I had friends. I loved the theater. I discovered something I was really good at. And this was something that just angered my dad even more. For some reason, I don't know, he was seeing me get happy and it was rubbing him the wrong way. I'm not sure what happened. But our fights became worse and worse. And he just was angry, and they were yelling at the top of your lung fights, you know, with my mom standing behind him just saying, calm down, you guys. And our house every night was just full of this anger and meanness between each other. Because I started fighting back, too. I mean, I was a teenager. I wasn't going to take it anymore. I was tired of being picked on. It was a time where there was a sign of hope. He went and saw a counselor, and I thought, oh my goodness, he's so crazy. The counselor's going to tell him, like, you need to knock this off. Counselor told him he needed to start practicing tough love because he had an unruly child. So it made things even worse around the house. There'd be many a times that I was so tired of the yelling, screaming, putting down, that I would just sit in my room, and I'd sit back by my closet door, just crouch down in the corner, and cry, and I would take my pocket knife out and I would just rub it on my wrist, just debating if I should just end it all. Nobody in school, except for those few friends in theater. Dad, it just seemed like there was no hope in any of that. My mom had talked about divorcing my dad for a long time. She finally, because she met somebody else, decided that she was going to leave him. I was pretty happy. But this devastated my dad. He thought we had this perfect home life. He went and checked himself into the psych ward because he just felt he was falling apart. We went there and visited him. And this guy who I would say is built a lot like me, pretty big guy, was now a whimpering little man sitting on the end of a bed asking when I can come home. I'd never seen my dad like that. It was devastating, and I didn't like seeing him like that. And I told him, don't worry, Dad, it's going to be okay. When he was released, he came home thinking that he was going to see this big sign, welcome home, Dad. We all love you. He came home to us loading a car, moving out. It devastated him even more, and he thought what I said to him, I was telling him that it would be okay, that we would be there when he got back. He no longer wanted to see me. I didn't see him for another year. His mental state even just got worse. Nobody around. And my mom had decided, and with her new boyfriend, that they were going to move to California. And they gave me the option. I could go with them with 1 year of high school left, or stay here with my dad. And I said, I will stay here with my dad. I've got some friends now. Things seem good. I'm going to stick around here, move in with Dad. And that was fine for a little while, but of course, we went right back to the insults and things. You know, at first he was happy that I was there, but it didn't take long. And I got to see his mental state up close. He did things like he made his own little tombstone with our family on there, rest in peace. He had on the calendar every date, or how many days it had been since the divorce. He just was so devastated by the loss of his family. As soon as it became apparent I wasn't going to graduate from high school, and around that same time, we had a huge fight, and he ended up grabbing my arm. It was one of the only times it really kind of ever got physical. But he twisted my arm, hurt, and I couldn't do it anymore. I was making 10 cents above minimum wage, and I moved out, got my own apartment. I owned a car, a dresser, and a stereo. I'd stop by time to time to check on him, put down, you know, and I had a job where actually I was promoted to be a manager of my own fast food restaurant. I'd worked there all through high school, and now I was getting my own store. And I walked up, Dad, I got my own store. Can you believe this? And he looked down at my feet and said, and yet you don't wear socks with your shoes. He couldn't even congratulate me on that. March 19th, 1989, I got up that morning and I received a phone call. It was my stepdad, and my stepdad never called. My mom had passed away. This was a big changing part in my life and, of course, my dad's life, because now I knew I had to go to his apartment and tell him that it was over. He believed that they were going to be back together. His mental state was he had delusional thinking that he would tell me things like, did you know the church bought our old house and is fixing it up and we're all going to live there again? I knew this was going to devastate him. going there and telling him that my mom had died was absolutely one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. I had no realization what would happen, what kind of effect it would have on him, or anything. So, jumped in my car, drove to California, grabbed my sister, her belongings, and drove back. I was now responsible for taking care of my sister, my mentally ill dad, and I was 20 years old. You know, time kind of marched on a little bit, you know, but I was getting a little angry because none of my other family members were stepping up to help out. Nobody was even calling. They was just left there to take care of that. My dad's depression was getting worse and worse. His will to live was disappearing. And I started having some of my own things. I had a failed relationship and different things. I was dealing with my own things, and then at the exact same time that was going on, he also came and told me he had cancer. So he died 3 months after telling me he had cancer. At this point, I was 24. He died without ever once saying he was sorry to me, saying he loved me, proud of me, any of that kind of stuff. But time marched on. I got married. I had 3 kids. And the one thing that you always say is, I'm not going to be like my dad. I'm not going to do that kind of stuff. But I was angry. I was angry at the world. I was mad. Nobody was ever there helping me out. I was always the one taking care of business. I was the one always doing everything. About 10 years ago, my wife and I became Christians, and that's a whole nother talk in and of itself. The miracles that happened in that situation that pushed us to become Christians is amazing. But we became Christians, and you start learning God's words. And one of the most important things is you need to forgive. I needed to learn to forgive all these people I thought could step up, do something. I needed to learn to forgive my dad, which was actually easier than forgiving my mom. My dad had a mental illness. He was paranoid, and he was manic depressive. A lot of what he did wasn't his fault. My mom leaving me to go take care of him, moving out to California to be with some other guy, that was a little harder. And the hardest one was to forgive myself, because I wasn't always the nicest guy. I really believed you were for me or against me, and that was the only 2 ways there was going to be. And anybody who was actually for me was eventually against me in my world. Eventually they did something wrong. But God also kept another one of his promises, and that is 1 Corinthians 10:13. No test or temptation that comes your way is beyond the course of what others have had to face. All you need to remember is that God will never let you down. He'll never let you be pushed past your limits. He will always be there to help you come through it. Now, part of me thinks, what the heck? That was an awful big test, Was he really there? But yeah, I got through it, didn't I? I'm here. I'm here today, And I often wondered, well, why does God push us so hard? Why would he allow all that to go on? Why would that? A lot of that stuff happened in a 3-year period for me. Why would you do that? Well, muscles get big with resistance. You don't get strong without resistance. I should have a 30-pack right now, but that resistance is what helped make me stronger, made me a better person. And God does that stuff because he wants to use us. Back when I was sitting in that closet, by my closet, thinking about that, God knew, he knew all the blessings that I was going to have. He knew about my wife. He knew about my children. He knew about the great job I would have and the opportunities like this that I was going to have. And he knew that someday I was going to be using this suffering that I had gone through for his glory. And that's another thing. You read the Bible, he loves to do that. I mean, that's all the Bible's full of, all these broken people that he uses for his glory, And so I just want everybody to know that if God can do that with me, this nobody in Fargo, North Dakota, he can do that with you. He wants to do that with you. He wants to use you for his glory. The problem is usually we are our own big obstacle. When we're trying to go down that road and somebody in front of us, it's usually us tapping ourselves on our own shoulder, get out of the way, because we are holding us back. We need to trust God. Not put your trust in yourself, which I did for so many years. You need to trust God. You need to trust in his word. You need to believe that you will not be tested. It may seem like it at times, and the best thing about being a Christian is this is the closest to hell I'm going to get to experience. I'm looking forward to that. But you need to forgive. You must forgive those who hurt you, even if they don't ask for it. My father never asked for it. There's no way you can ever ask for it now. You have to forgive. And it's like it's right in the Lord's Prayer. Forgive others. Forgive me the way I forgive others. Well, if I don't forgive my dad, how is God going to forgive me? You must ask for forgiveness. You must ask for forgiveness for yourself. You must forgive yourself. Most important. We're human. We make mistakes. And then, once you do that, you can begin to rewrite your story. Have you ever seen the movie The Sixth Sense? Spoiler alert, Bruce Willis is dead, okay? But once you know that information, they start showing all the scenes from earlier in the movie, and you see them differently. They're all different now. You realize what really had happened there. And I believe that's what people can do. I believe you can change your history. You can change what would happen to you, and you can make it so that you're not the victim. You can become a victor. You can use that for God's glory. I'm doing that right now. By me standing up here telling my story, that's what I'm doing. I'm rewriting my story by not just being the victim. I am changing it for God's glory and rewriting who I am right now. I want everybody to be able to do that. I want everybody to be able to rewrite their story. I want you to break yourself free from whatever is holding you back. I want you to break the lines of dysfunction that happen in your family that keep passing down from generation to generation. As I find out, my grandpa wasn't exactly the kindest to my dad at times. And it just would have snowballed and kept going on if somebody didn't stand up and say, no more of this. The thing about the suffering and boasting about God's glory is that we can't be ashamed of it, because your suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance produces character. And character produces hope. And it is that hope that we have that's going to give you the ability to trust God's words and know that he is not going to push you past your limit. Thank you.